Welcome to my Google Calendar tutorial. Here you'll learn all the basics of Google Calendar and how it can be useful to you. To start with, you need to use Google Calendar. You need to have a Gmail or a Google account. So start by going to google.com or google.ca. And if you don't already have a Google account, I'm going to show you how to set one up. But the first thing you need to do is you need to sign into your Google account. And you need to do this whether you have the Google account or not. Now, if you already have a Google account, you can sign in right here with your email and password. But if you do not have a Google account, then you're going to need to click right here to create an account for free. And that's what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to click that. And here's where you'll set up your name. So I'm just going to set up a generic Sturgeon, last name Heights IB. And my username will be Sturgeon Heights IB. And I'll set up a password. Oops. And confirm it. Okay, and obviously you're going to set up the rest of this information as well. Now here you actually have the option of entering your mobile phone number or your cell phone number, and I'm not going to do that now, but I do highly recommend that. So one of the features that I'll be explaining later does make use of that in a really good way. You will need to enter a current email address. You certainly could use your work email. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to use another one. And enter this. And you'll have to agree, of course. Okay, and it should at least tell you that you're ready to go. And so now you'll notice that when you go to Google, you'll be logged in under your new Google account if you hadn't set this up before. This will give you access to lots of material in addition to Google Calendar. All right, so now that we're back at Google, I can now up here on the top click on Calendar to get started on Google Calendar. Okay, and the welcome screen appears first, and again, it's just basically a setup at this point. You can, again, connect to your phone right here if you want to, but again, I'm going to leave that for now. You can always do that later. So I'm going to set the time zone, Canada Central Time, and this, however, I would recommend that you set this up in this way. This is how Google Calendar, when you create an event, reminds you of things. And by default, it'll put in two reminders. And I don't see that as useful right away. So I do recommend that if you haven't set this up before, uncheck these two items. We can set them up later. Again, here you can enter your mobile or your cell number. And again, we'll do that later. And then I'll just go next. And again, it's asking you to sync with your phone. I'm going to just click Start using Google Calendar. Okay, and I'm in. And we'll move on now to the next section of this. Okay, so this is the main screen you'll be looking at in Google Calendar. It has a variety of things that I wanted to point out right here. So this area over here usually has a small version of the monthly calendar, as well as areas for your various calendars, which I'll go over in a minute, and other calendars that you can import. Up here, you'll find the area where you can display different versions of your calendar, like different views. So from day, week, month, etc. And this can also be adjusted. Here you can get at some of the settings of your calendar and some more features as well. For example, you can print your calendar or other things, and under the settings you can change different features, which I'll go into in a minute. Just to show you what my personal calendar looks like, it's obviously a lot more detailed here. You can see a month view of all my events, which I can switch to a weekly view. And all the different calendars that you set up are color coded, along with the imported calendars all color coded. Right down to daily views, and you can scroll through your days or your weeks or your months right here. And if you need to jump back to the current date, just click today and you're right back where you were when you first started. The agenda view offers an even more interesting view where you can just see your events in this format real simply. And this is a great way when you want to print it, to print up the agenda format. Just for a quick agenda of, for example, your week or your day, and you can easily see and expand on that from there. All right, so back to our Google Calendar. Here I'm going to be setting up the calendar for the IB program, which we'll be sharing with all the teachers and all the students. Teachers will have access to this calendar so that they can actually add events or modify events within the calendar, whereas students will just be able to view or possibly add as well, depending on the way we set it up. And it's not that we all use the same calendar, we just have all access to the calendar and can add and remove events from it from there. But we will all still have our own separate calendars based on the Google account that we just finished creating. So now that I have this all set up, I'm going to show you how to add another calendar to the calendars you have now. So right here under My Calendars, it'll just by default be the Sturgeon Heights IB calendar. So I'm going to add a new calendar to this, and I can do that by clicking on this small triangle right here. Okay. This small black triangle right here is where I expanded or collapsed the view of my calendars, but it's actually that other little small calendar which gives you access to things, for example, how to create a new calendar right there. So I'm going to do that, and right here I can give it a name. So I'm going to give this the name IB Exams. So this might be the exam calendar, and I could fill in a description. Okay, and a location. And other features that you can certainly change as well. But this is the key right here. This is where we change the visibility of this calendar. Okay. Now, if I check this off and make it public, that means that the calendar is exactly as it says. It will be public, and everyone can see it and use it. Okay. But they can't change it. They can see it, but they can't make any changes to it at all. I do this with my course calendars when I set this up for my classes. I make them public so I can share the calendar with parents or with students, but they can't add things to that calendar. They can just see the calendar and all the events within it. But it's this second option here where I share with specific people that is much more useful. So with this, I can actually enter specific email addresses of people that I want to share it with, right? So now I can enter an email of, for example, my email, and right here I can change what that person can do with the calendar, and this can be changed later as well. So right here I've just got it by default. They can only see the things, but if I want to give that person more access to the calendar, I can give them the ability to make changes to events or other things. So I'm going to give this person full access right here to make changes and to manage the sharing of this calendar, and now add that person in there. Okay, so now you'll see here in the list that this person is now in this calendar, and they have abilities right here. Now, as the creator of the calendar, I could change that later and reduce or increase what they can do with the calendar. And you can see there's lots of tips in here as well that you could read through if you have more time about ways to create that calendar. But now that I'm done, I'm going to click Create Calendar. Okay, so now it's going to say that it's going to invite that person to the calendar. So I'm going to click Invite. So now an email will be sent to that person so that they now know that that calendar is part of, has been shared with them. Okay, now I'm going to show you what it's like when you receive the invitation to join the calendar. You get an email, and then it basically says, would you like to add this calendar? So for someone else who's got their Gmail account set up or their Google account set up, then they can add the calendar to their set of calendars. So I'm going to click Yes. And now you'll see amongst all my calendars is the IB Exams calendar, which I can turn on and off if necessary for use.